Hey there, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and we're going to be breaking down this design in Photoshop. So yeah, let's hop into Photoshop. So yeah, this is the design I made. I got some requests telling me to break down this design, so we're going to be doing that today. Let's get into it. So I'll be going down to the base layer, and I started with this dark background. From there, the next thing I did was I brought in this city view. You can see the name is Cityscape Skyline. So I brought that in. Then I wanted to extend the background because I wanted this to be at like the floor level and I needed more cloud. So I just used the generative fill feature in Photoshop to just achieve that. There are different ways of doing that, but using generative fill just made things better and faster. So after doing that, I got some images of different locations because the church has branches in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, and they are celebrating their anniversary. And it's 6 years, and I wanted to get like pictorial representations of these different campuses that they have by just getting landmarks of those different cities. So the first one was this Third Mainland Bridge, this picture. So I got the picture, I cropped it out. It was more complex like this, but I cropped this out. Then I added this again. This was like um a generative fill that I did here because I wanted this to blend with the background I had, and Photoshop did that for me. So the next thing was Abuja. Got this Abuja landmark. There's also one from Port Harcourt. Yes, this is the one from Port Harcourt that I also added. Then the next thing was this Pastor David Ogenerebo. That's his name. So I put that on the floor. Then I have this picture of him in the cloud. So the blend mode was normal, but I changed it to screen so it could blend well. Lighting could also work, but screen works best. So after that, it's a celebration, so I added confetti. We have this gold confetti all around. Then I added curves to the bottom. So how did I do this? Just bringing this down and inverting my mask layer. Control I. This is what it looked like before. Then I had to invert my mask layer and I painted the parts that I wanted to be dark. Or you can just create a new layer, use your brush and just brush this place black and just extend it and just bring this a little bit down and reduce the opacity. That will also work. I decided to use curves. So after doing that, then this gradient map tuned up things a little bit. So this is what the gradient map looks like. We have a shade of purple, we have a tint of purple, then we have this peach color, and then we have this color as well, like light pink. So that was all from the gradient map. Then after that, I think I added a lot at the same time. So let's look at it one by one. So what I have here is just another Pastor David Ogenerebo overlaid it. So why I have it on top of the gradient map is I wanted it to be more visible. If I bring it below the gradient map, it adds a gradient to it, and I don't want that. I still want it to look a little bit clear. So I left that. Then here, what do we have here? We have the text, the celebrating 6 years. So if you want this font, the font names are, let's look at it together. So the font names are, this is Oligate Signature, and this is Milli Font. Yeah, this is the Mill font, and this is Oligate Signature. So those were the two font I used for this. Then one thing I did was, if you notice, the text is not like standing straight, so it's very easy for you to do that. You just have to press Ctrl T, transform tool, and change it to perspective, and just do like this. Just pull this anchor point, you get, and you get that same effect. So after doing that, then there's this backlight just to separate the pastor from the background. Added these backlights, then added the shadow, then we have the pastor himself, then use generative AI for the hand. The picture wasn't well cropped. Then I did some adjustments on the pastor, added level just to brighten him a little bit, curves to add more contrast, then curves the bottom of his leg, because I'm making the light to be from the top. So if light is coming from the top, then shadows should be cast down. So that's why the bottom is dark, and I was trying to keep that consistent. So added a light here, that's just for drama, just for the dramatic effect. Added the logos, church logo and the 6 years anniversary. Then this is where there was another work. So what I did was, I created these shapes. I did everything one by one, and I added a little bit of inner glow. You can use these settings as well, because you see what you're going to see what I did later. So I added a bit of inner glow and motion blur to each of the images. And for the motion blur, I just duplicated the layer, converted to smart objects, filter, blur, motion blur. I did this like individually, because if you notice, the pictures are aligned at certain angles, and I have to make the blurs to be at those certain angles. So this picture is going this way, so the blur also has to go this way. So I had to move this. Yes, I had to move it there. And I changed the blend mode. Or did I change the blend mode? No, I didn't. So I left it like that, created a mask, and all I did was just to erase part of the picture that I wanted to be visible. You get? So the pictures, I did that for all of those pictures, so that way the pictures don't overwhelm the design. They are just there, they are subtle, and they look like as if they are part of the background, but they are like above the background. You get? So I did that for like all the pictures, same effects. So you can see that same thing here. Then the flares, so this added more life to the motion blur effects. So there were these flares, there were these flares I got from Google Pictures, and I changed each of their blend modes to screen. So I took each of them, put them by the sides. Then this was an image I found on Unsplash. It just worked well. It just worked well for what I was doing, and it added a little bit of color and just a bit of drama. So on this side, I just duplicated it, took it to the other side. Then we have the gradient map, selective color, then just some textures, some light overlays. Some light overlays. And the final thing was this, using camera raw filter. So I hope you find this video fulfilling. I hope you're able to learn one or two things about how to create amazing designs with striking compositions, beautiful typography, and some subtle effects that can make your design look good. Thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next one. Bye.